Tonight on CFTK-TV News, the postal strike saw a rather unfortunate update emerge. We have a look at how the local postal workers are dealing with the strike, and a local program in Terrace is seeking volunteer help.
Northwest BC's only television news team. We are CFTK-TV News.
Good evening, I'm Cale Maslin, and here's what's making the news in the Northwest and beyond for today. As the cold sets in and the snow begins to accumulate in Terrace, a local program is putting out an appeal for volunteers. Here's CFTK-TV's Jaylene Matthews with the details.
A local program is helping seniors stay safe this winter by providing an essential service in the north, snow removal.
To help our seniors with getting safe access at all times to their medical appointments and just being able to get out into their community and being able to have safe access into their homes as well.
The program is run by Volunteer Terrace, and they're currently on the hunt for more Snow Angel volunteers.
Our volunteers are able to shovel their driveways and give them safe access and put salt and stuff on the driveways. And obviously our seniors that we support are low income and socially isolated seniors, so they don't have anybody really in town that are able to do this for them.
Davidson says it's an opportunity for any capable hands.
We've had families do it together, we've had individuals do it together, we've had newcomers do it, we've had seniors themselves do it, we've had teenagers do it with other teenagers, friends. We've had hockey family, like hockey kids. We've had hockey teams. We've had schools.
Another option is employer-supported volunteering, great for local businesses.
Employer-supported volunteering, you get your employers to allow you to go out into your community and do it and give back to your community.
Davidson says the effort comes much appreciated.
Our seniors are really grateful because this is something that is needed to hate to say it, stay alive, because if a senior were to fall in their home and they are snowed in, it's difficult, almost impossible for some people to get into their homes because they're snowed in and an ambulance or somebody can't get in.
If you'd like to be a snow angel, give Volunteer Terrace a call or find them online.
A lot of them are appreciative of our volunteers, and a lot of our volunteers we've had been doing snow angels for a long time. So I think they've gotten used to their volunteers, they've gotten used to seeing them. Now they're not just volunteers, they're friends, they're family. So it's not just like volunteering, it's kind of just like a new thing. It's kind of sort of part of life now, especially like for me, volunteering is just something I do. It's just like a hobby now. It's just part of me.
For CFTK-TV News, I'm Jaylene Matthews.
Mainly due to a collaboration between the City of Prince Rupert and Prince Rupert Port Authority, the Leicester Center of Arts was able to get a major structural upgrade done. Through the PRPA's Community Investment Fund, the city landmark was able to get some new metal roofing, as well as new flashing, gutters, and drains. This work came as a part of the multitude of improvement projects that the Port Authority is supporting as a way to make sure that Prince Rupert's key community assets remain in good condition for the foreseeable future. The Leicester Center seems to have been a particular focus for renovation work since the Port Authority spent $317,540 on this most recent project and has put over $1 million in total towards improving the center. David Cohen, who is the appointed U.S. ambassador to Canada currently for President Joe Biden, is now finalizing his term and just finished up a visit to Haida this month. He was the first high-level foreign representative to visit the island since the Haida Nation acquired governmental authority with Bill S-16, getting royal assent in Parliament, bringing inherent rights of governments and self-determination to the Haida Nation. During his time on the island, Cohen also focused on maritime rights related to fishing and preserving Haida culture and language while promoting self-governance. There's a development in the Canada Post strike, but not a good one. Mediation has been temporarily suspended because both the employer and union remain so far apart on negotiations. CTV's Yasmin Gannon reports.
The latest update clearly shows just how far apart both sides are on critical issues, creating a lot of uncertainty for both business owners and consumers. Federal Labor Minister Stephen McKinnon said that pausing mediation will hopefully allow both Canada Post and the union to reassess their positions and return to the bargaining table. McKinnon is making the move after what he calls, quote, several intensive days of negotiation. The strike is now in its 13th day, and a key issue is a push for weekend deliveries. However, the two sides are at odds over how to make it work.
I would say frustrated. I mean, initially we were optimistic, but with talks being broken down all the time, there is frustration.
Canada Post estimates that 10 million packages are at a standstill as a result, and all just before the busy holiday shopping season.
If it was easy, we could just throw money at this problem and then move on. But the reality is the money is declining at Canada Post. We've been posting losses, and we need to think of the future.
For some small businesses, the impacts are too far to come back from, even if an agreement was reached soon.
For a lot of businesses that have been put through the ringer over the past 5 years, are deeply in debt, haven't recovered from the pandemic restrictions, if they miss out on a good holiday season, they may be done.
Both parties are being warned that they alone are responsible for the consequences of the strike and the possible resolution. As soon as productive bargaining is back on track, that's when the mediator will step in and go back to productive bargaining. Yasmin Gandim, CTV News, Coquitlam.
Coming up next, the Canada Post strike is now resulting in temporary layoffs. Welcome back. The union representing Canada Post workers have now said that the Crown Corporation has started to lay off striking employees as they approach the 2-week mark. Canada Post spokeswoman Lisa Liu confirmed the layoffs, saying that they are temporary, and Liu said that the organization has informed their employees that the collective agreements are now no longer viable and their conditions have changed according to the Canada Labour Code. This comes after in early November, Canada Post issued their lockout notice, but said that they did not expect to lock out employees. Labor employment lawyer Deborah Hudson said that the layoffs by Canada Post are an unprecedented move and will be met with legal pushback from the union. And in Terrace, the recent cold wind and snow haven't had a ton of effect on the local striking postal workers as they continue to maintain their picket line 15 days into the work stoppage.
It's been going really well. We've been having mostly all our members out here on the line with us. You see some days that we're kind of struggling with the cold and everything, but then we have our awesome customers and everybody that's supporting us to bring us hot beverages and that, which helps keep our strength up, and we've been doing pretty well so far. We get a lot of honks and waves and supports, so we're really appreciative of all our customers that are supporting us and everything and understanding why we're doing this.
Over now to a happy ending for a 5-week search for a 20-year-old man who went missing while camping and fishing in northern BC. He got rescued, and we're learning details about how he survived the harrowing ordeal in the woods. CTV's Shannon Patterson has the story.
Sam Bonastic is used to roughing it outdoors, but when the 20-year-old didn't return from a camping and fishing trip to Redfern-Cayley Provincial Park, which is about 250 kilometers northwest of Fort St. John, his parents reported him missing on October 17th.
His mother said that if she knew how the terrain was, she wouldn't have let him go. She didn't want him to go alone, but he's 20 years old. You know how kids are.
An extensive search from the air and on the ground turned up nothing.
The physical BC government rescue team left because they did all they can do. The family members and a couple friends still stayed for another couple weeks. But by then, I mean, the last day that they stayed, November 11th, the mother and father both gave me a hug and we all had tears.
But Bonastic was still alive. On Tuesday, he managed to flag down 2 men in a vehicle headed to work.
They seen a guy walking with 2 sticks, like on each arm. And they stopped and they said, like, who are you? And he said his name. And they said, well, holy that's Sam. The 2 guys said that he cut his sleeping bag and wrapped them around his legs and his feet to keep warm. Mm-hmm. So they dragged him into the truck, gave him some water, food, phoned 911, and they took him halfway so the ambulance could meet him halfway. And they brought him to the Fort Nelson Hospital.
Sam had told them and the police that he'd spent time in his vehicle. He eventually found some shelter or built some shelter in a dried up creek bed, and was there until he managed to walk out yesterday.
Police hope to learn more about how Bonastic survived his 5-week ordeal in the woods once he's recovered.
The outcome has been the best that anybody could hope for, and hopefully we'll get some answers to some questions when we can talk to Sam further.
Shannon Patterson, CTV News.
The NDP government recently held its first cabinet meeting since the election. The premier says his team will focus on so-called kitchen table issues like affordability, healthcare, housing, and safety. But as CTV's Rob Buffin reports, the tariff threat from south of the border was also top of mind.
Premier David Eby's cabinet gave him a warm welcome at its first meeting today. Front and center, Donald Trump's threats of 25% tariffs on all Canadian goods.
The only way we've gotten through the previous challenges we faced is by sticking together as a province and as a country, and that's how we're going to solve this one as well.
This gathering ahead of a First Minister's meeting with all 13 premiers and Prime Minister Trudeau, pitched as a chance to unite the leaders in response to the tariffs threatened by Trump against Mexico and Canada unless both countries improve border security, thwarting illegal immigrants and drugs from entering the states. But unity at that meeting might be tricky.
I think the issues at the border should be addressed, but the tariffs aren't necessary to get there. And I do think the issues are significantly different for Mexico than they are for Canada.
Just saying we're not as bad as the other guys is not going to fly in this case. What I understand is that we've seen a doubling of the number of interactions at the border from people coming across, up to 200,000 a year now. That's significant.
Meanwhile, Eby confirmed BC won't follow Ontario's lead and give a 2-month tax break on PST items exempted by Ottawa in other provinces with HST. And it won't be until March at the earliest that British Columbians get their promised rebate check, up to $1,000 for families, because the legislature isn't returning until a throne speech set for February 18th.
We will have to pass legislation so that we're able to provide that grocery rebate to people.
BC's Budget Day is now scheduled for March 4th, with the spring session ending May 29th.
Turning to tonight's weather, the North Coast will be home to rain and a low of 6 degrees. The Terrace-Kitimat area should deal with periods of rain plus a low of -2 degrees. And the Bulkley Valley and Lakes District is expected to see periods of snow and a low down at -10 degrees. On the North Coast, the upcoming week will consist of essentially nothing but rain while the high shifts from 5 to 10 degrees. In the Terrace-Kitimat area, the next week or so will be made up of lots of snow mainly, but with some rain as well as the high bounces between -1 and 2 degrees. And in the Bulkley Valley and Lakes District, the week for them will also be home to pretty much nothing but snow and maybe some rain too, as their high moves from -6 to 2 degrees. Checking out the highways now, visit Drive BC for the latest and up-to-date conditions, and as always, drive safe out there. On Highway 16, there is slippery sections, utility work, snowing, limited visibility, and the Usk Ferry has been shut down for this season with the cable car now in effect. Highway 35 has some snowing, and Highway 118 has some slippery sections. Highway 37 has some roadside brushing, slippery sections, and utility work. Highway 37A has more slippery sections. Some other slippery sections are on the Nishka Highway, and the Telegraph Creek Road has slippery sections as well. And this is what the roads were looking like this afternoon around the region from the View of the Province's highway cams. Still to come, BC ferries might be headed for a big fares increase. Welcome back. To a dire warning about the future of BC ferries and the potential for a huge fares increase. The system costs so much to operate, the CEO figures a whopping 30% hike would be needed to keep it afloat. And as CTV's St. Jean Alexander reports, that still might not be enough.
BC Ferries says it's not making enough money, not even close. So strapped for cash, it admits the corporation often falls short of what customers expect. And yet, by all accounts, it's likely those customers who will have to pay more. A lot more.
It's going to be harder on people that are retired and have fixed incomes like myself.
BC Ferries tells CTV News that when it crunched the numbers in 2023, that an approximately 30% fare increase would be needed in 2028 to simply keep up. And since that time, inflation and costs have increased even faster across many aspects of our business.
Well, it really kind of keeps you trapped on the island if you live here.
Ships are aging and new ones are desperately needed, and the cost to build them has skyrocketed 40% more than just a few years ago.
I would like to see something like frequent traveler tickets or something, so that those of us who are constantly on the ferries have a discount, not an increase.
There is a cap on increases, 3.2% over 4 years, but it's not clear what the public might face after that. Historically, the BC government has stepped in to help keep fares down.
We'll work with BC Ferries and we'll ensure that affordability is maintained for British Columbians. There is an onus and there is a responsibility on BC Ferries to do what they can to bring down their operating costs as well.
The corporation wants to have a new vessel in the water by 2029 and several more after that. What's not clear is how much they will cost or how much of the bill passengers will have to pay. St. John Alexander, CTV News, Vancouver.
Despite ramped-up biosecurity measures, Fraser Valley poultry farmers remain the hardest hit in Canada in terms of the avian flu, and that's left them on edge, wondering if their farm will be next. CTV's Michelle Bernardo spoke to a second-generation farmer about losing hundreds of thousands of birds and its toll.
The barns are filled with birds at this Langley farm, but 2 years ago, Border Creek Farms was in crisis.
Back in December of 2022, early in the month, we noticed that we had abnormal mortality in one of our barns.
By the next day, a vet confirmed the birds were infected with highly pathogenic avian flu.
It's devastating to see.
200,000 chickens had to be euthanized. Even with the highest level of biosecurity protocols in place, there are currently 54 farms with avian flu in BC.
You're on edge. Even if you're not one of the infected farmers, you're still on edge.
The agriculture critic for the BC Conservative says some farms have been hit 3 times and that farmers have waited up to a year for compensation.
It's a massive financial hit to have no birds in your barns.
It can take quite a while to get those payments. And so I'm currently drafting a letter to Minister McCauley, my federal colleague, to see if that can be expedited.
But Payton believes the province should step up and offer disaster financial assistance or loans.
The poultry people right now are just looking for zero interest or low interest loans to get them through the months where they have no income coming in.
Though avian flu response falls under federal jurisdiction, BC's agriculture minister says the province has been supporting farmers.
We do have an agri-stability program. And this program looks at margin losses.
Migratory birds are natural carriers of avian flu and believed responsible for outbreaks on poultry farms.
We're trying to put in systems to help out, but I don't see an end to it.
That reality weighs heavily on farmers like Jansen, who hope that strictly following biosecurity measures will be enough to protect their poultry. Michelle Bernardo, CTV News, Langley.
The Canadian dollar recently fell to its lowest level since the pandemic start. It rose slightly again not too long ago and was sitting at just over 71 cents US. As CTV's Abigail Turner reports, the falling loonie isn't good for anyone hoping to spend money south of the border.
When the weather turns cold, many Canadians look to head south for a hot holiday. But with our dollar sitting at a 4-year low, plans are changing.
The dollar exchange is just way too much.
The inflation is on top of it is just insane. So this is probably my only trip to the U.S.
Travel agents say many Canadians aren't canceling, rather altering their holidays.
We definitely see people looking to find opportunities where their dollar can go further. And sometimes that will be looking at different destinations to travel to or traveling to places where the U.S. dollar has less influence.
Right now, the loonie is hovering around 71 cents U.S.
This is extreme for the Canadian dollar.
Experts point to a disconnect between the Bank of Canada and the American Federal Reserve in an effort to avoid a recession.
What was pushing it in this direction was what they call interest rate differentials, or where the Bank of Canada is being headed, lowering their interest rates ahead of and faster than the U.S. Federal Reserve.
Cross-border investments and trade also reflecting the weakening dollar on top of Donald Trump's 25% tariff threat.
This is a warning to markets that we are going to get shocks from the new administration in the United States.
And the downward dollar could continue.
A weak Canadian dollar is going to benefit some people and hurt other people. For imports coming into Canada, the cost is going to go up, and that cost is going to get passed along to the consumer. Whether that's a bag of oranges, at the grocery store.
While Canadian travelers are finding cross-border holidays more expensive, there are industries benefiting from the weaker dollar. Tourism Whistler says 30% of its revenue is from Americans. Abigail Turner, CTV News, Vancouver.
And now we turn our attention to how the stock markets look today compared to yesterday. The Canadian dollar is up 13.10 of a cent. The price of gold is down $3.30. Oil is up 16 cents. Natural gas is up 9 cents. Aluminum is down $13.50. In Toronto, the TSX is up 55.22 points. The Venture Index is down 0.22. And in New York, the Dow Jones and Nasdaq are the same. Still ahead is a look at a very scary incident that happened in the middle of a major highway. Welcome back. A gunman who is suspected of firing at 10 cars on a major highway in Ontario remains at large. Terrified drivers came face to face with the man who was standing in the middle of the highway threatening with them. We'll next hear from a witness who happened to get up close and personal with the gunman. CTV's Raheem Ladani reports.
This is dashcam video recorded at 5:30 Tuesday morning from a car traveling southbound on the 410 onto the 401 East. In the video, you can see a man dart across 4 lanes of traffic.
And you think nothing of it until you see a gun pointing at you.
Mike was behind the wheel driving to work. He says he saw the man walk back onto the highway and point a gun at him.
It's fight or flight mode. And my first decision was duck down, put it into third gear, and get the hell out of there.
In a different dashcam video, you can clearly see the man walking towards another vehicle and point what appears to be a gun at the frightened occupants.
Hey, no.
OPP say there have been 10 reports of vehicles being shot at. Police are still searching for the suspect, who they have now identified as 29-year-old Troy Ledrew of Toronto. It's alleged Ledrew stole a vehicle from a motorist in the area and drove away. Police later found it abandoned on Faskin Drive in Etobicoke, which is where he was last seen.
It was a wake-up call. You take things for granted. You hear in the news, it's like, it's not going to happen to me. And, I thank God I wasn't seriously impacted with it, and I hope nobody was hurt.
Police say no one suffered serious injuries from the incident.
A federal judge has dismissed a BC health executive's appeal that claimed he had been wrongfully denied employment insurance after being fired for refusing to get the COVID-19 vaccine. The executive, Daryl Sturgeon, was fired from Interior Health in November 2021 for his vaccine refusal based on his Christian beliefs. Sturgeon's application for employment insurance was denied due to his firing being based on misconduct, and he sought a judicial review after appeals with the Social Security Tribunal failed. That is all of our news for now. From all of us here at CFTK-TV News, I'm Cal Maslin, and thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.